Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker. Look here, y'all. I've done quite a few episodes about mental health, but this episode is a little different than the ones I've done in the past. In this episode, I'm going to talk to you about how a mental health person that got out of prison spiraled out of control and how it affected the family and their friends. You know, it's not a one of those stories where you might laugh a little bit. It's a very sad situation, but it's one that I feel that needs to be shared. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. Mental health is real, and wishing it away, it's not gonna make it go away. It's gonna have to. It's gonna require some real work, but I don't think a lot of people understand or have any idea of how a mental health patient getting out of prison affects the family members and the friends that they are around in the free world. And in this episode, I hope that I can shed a little light on that, you know what I'm saying, and tell a story about the situation that I've just come to understand and realize myself. You know what I'm saying? So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Now check this out, y'all. We got this guy that gets out of prison. He's a mental health patient. And let me explain to you when a mental health patient gets out of prison, they do all the paperwork to get them food stamps and somewhere to live and all of these types of things. Plus, they give them it's either 30 or 90-day supply of their medication to take. And let me tell you why that's significant, okay? Because here's the thing. A lot of people don't understand that while the mental health patient is in prison, they don't give them the medication to keep on their person to take on their own. The nurses, the administration, they have that medicine. They have what they call pill call or med call, and they call them at different times throughout the day, depending on what the doctors have determined as far as how many times they need to take their meds. They call them and they go to med call or they go to pill call, what you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. And they give them the medicine. They make sure they take it. They give them to them and they open their mouth. They have to show them that they swallowed the medicine and so on and so forth. That kind of thing. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. But when they get out of prison, no matter how long they've been in prison, they've become regimented in knowing what time the pill call is going to be and getting a place in line and all this and that, taking the meds without a problem whatsoever in most cases. Now, when they do uh, buck the system and don't want to take their meds, well, guess what happens? Here they come. And they're going to take the medicine one way or the other. They're going to take it one way or the other. Now, a lot of times in these situations, they have a court-appointed conservator that they will contact and say, look, such and such is not taking this medicine. What do we do? And they tell them, force medicate them, whatever the case may be. But they have mechanisms in place in prison to ensure that this mental health patient is going to take the meds and receive the help that they need. Okay? Think about that. But when they leave, they give them a 30 to 90-day supply. And the reason I say 30 to 90 days is because I couldn't get the exact number on that. Some people said 30, some people said 90. You feel what I'm saying? Supply of medicine to take with them. And they tell them when they're supposed to take it. On their own. On their own. So in this situation, we had somebody that got out. Mental health patient, a cutter. Cuts on his arms, cuts on his body, all over. Has attempted suicide numerous times. Numerous times. But his time is up. His sentence is over. They found him a halfway house that would accept him. He got out. First few weeks, doing just fine. They're helping him to make sure, keeping up, taking his meds and all this and that. But you got to keep in mind, it's grown folks now. You out there in the free world. They have things to do. And you're not in a mental health hospital. So if you take your meds, you take your meds. If you don't take your meds, that's on you. So now, time goes on. He's still taking his meds the first few weeks, first month. He's doing great. He's starting to get visits from his family. They're coming to the halfway house to see him, check on him, see how he's doing, because eventually he's going to get out of that halfway house. He's going to be living with them, or staying with them, or being around them. But he's doing fine. They see him like, yeah, he's okay. He's okay. He's working, doing great, prospering, obeying the rules, not violent whatsoever, just doing what he's supposed to do. Well, that second month, he thinks he's doing just fine, so he misses his medicine. Not intentionally, he's just trying to hustle to get to work. And he gets to work, and he's feeling a little funny, but he shakes it off, and he makes it through the day. Well, you know what that did? That partially convinced him that he didn't need the medicine. So the next day, he gets up, he don't feel like taking the medicine. This is not him rushing out the door and forgetting. The very next day, he's like, I don't need it. I'm good. So he doesn't take it. He goes to work. And he toughs it out. He's feeling awkward a little bit. But he feels good enough to make it through the day. Feels good enough to make it through the day. He's doing construction work. So he's around all types of equipment. But they mainly got him in the hole. Digging holes. Laying pipes in the holes. You know what I'm saying? Getting down there in the mud. So he's making it through. But his supervisor noticed that he was a little bit aggressive. And when they ask him to do this and do that, he starts to complain about it. Why I gotta do that? I'm always the one doing this and that by myself. Which is not true. It wasn't true, but that's what he sees. That's what he thinks. And this is just day 2 of him not taking his medicine. So now the people at his work, they understand that he's mental health, but they want to give him a chance. But they notice something's off. In 2 days, y'all, the people at the halfway house, they notice something off. So the boss man calls the halfway house and says, is everything okay? Has he been taking his medicine? Well, they go into his room because one of the stipulations of being in the halfway house, they can search his room at any time. And they know that he was given a certain amount of meds. So when they look, they see that for the last 2 days, he hadn't been taking his medicine. So when he gets home, they ask him, are you okay? Have you been taking your medicine? And guess what he does? He tells them, I don't need it. I haven't been taking it for the last 2 days. Well, you already know. They tell him, one of the stipulations of you being able to stay here at this halfway house is that you got to take your medicine. So you need to either take your medicine in the morning or you got to get out. Now, he's flattened his sentence. So it's no such thing as violating his parole and sending him back to prison. If they put him out, right? Listen to me. If they put him out, he has to hit the streets, go live with family and friends. Okay? That's the choice. So guess what he does? He tells them he's not taking his medicine no more. So they tell him, pack your bags. You gotta go. He gets a little aggressive, talks crazy to him, tell him he don't need them anymore. Totally just throws everything out the window that they've done for him. The opportunity that they've given him, throws that out the window. But it's because of what? His mental health issues. This man is schizophrenic. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? He's schizophrenic. He thinks he's just fine without the medicine because he's been able to make it for 2 days, but he don't understand he's getting more and more aggressive. They can see what he can't see. To him, he's good. To him, he's good. Well, the halfway house people call his family and tell his family what's going on, and they tell him, you know what I'm saying, he's got to go. So they said, we'll be down there to pick him up. We got it. They get down there to pick him up. They get the medicine, and they tell him on the ride home, look here, you're going to have to take your meds, man. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you can't stay here. He agrees to take his meds. So they don't do what they did in the penitentiary. They don't stand over him and make him take his meds. They tell him, okay, we trust you. They want to give him the benefit of the doubt. They want to treat him like he's an adult. But I'm going to tell y'all something. It's not being disrespectful to be a little bit more vigilant and pay more attention to somebody that's got mental health issues. It's not treating them like a child, to be over them and make sure they take their meds. That's just being smart. Why is that? Because no matter how old they get, depending on their circumstances, they're going to need some assistance. They're going to need somebody to encourage them at all times to do the right thing, which is to take their meds. All this being standoffish thing and saying that he's grown or he can handle it and all this and that, well, you got problems with that. So they do exactly what they said. They were hands off. But then they started noticing, oh, he's aggressive now. Because when he was in here, he was out of control when he didn't take his medicine. That's why they had a conservator that they would call and say, look, what do we do? He don't want to take his med. And they would give him permission to force medicate. But they can't do that out there. Why is that? What is that? The laws don't allow for that. He has to be a threat to himself or others before they can even put him in a place. And then he can check himself out. Makes no sense. There's more control on what you can do with a mental health patient in prison than on the streets. But here's the thing. He gets irate with him. He starts to threaten him. Oh, wait a minute. He's a threat to somebody else. So they call the mental health people. And they tell him to bring him down. They take him down there. He goes down there. But he's convinced that nothing is wrong with him. He doesn't even see himself, you know what I'm saying, as the aggressor. He sees them as the aggressor. He's tripping. So long story short, he finds himself in a situation where they tell him that they're going to check him into the hospital for a couple of days just to get him back on his routine. He agrees, and while he's there, he calms all the way down. Why did that happen? Because he found himself in a familiar environment, regimented, structured, stick to the schedule. He had no problems. After 2 or 3 days, the doctor said he's fine. He can leave if he wants to. Guess what? He left. They can't stop him. He goes back home. He's lost his job, though. But he goes to the job and he explains to them, I messed up. They give him another chance. When they give him another chance, they let him have his job back. They give him another chance. He's doing great. Another month goes by. Same thing. Spirals out of control. His family is not used to this. His friends are not used to this. They haven't seen him for years. I think he was in prison almost 20 years. They hadn't seen him for years. No, longer than 20 years. About 32 years. They hadn't seen him for a long time. So they don't know how bad he can be when he's not taking his medicine. They see the scars, but it's not registered. They see the scars all over his arm, all over his stomach and back and legs, but it don't register to them that he did this to himself when he was stressing. He did this to himself when he was hearing voices. So now they're looking at him like they're afraid. They're not sleeping at night. Got the doors locked in the house. They got a couple of kids in the house. It's stressing them out. After about 2 weeks of him being aggressive and all this and that, they tell him, look, you gotta go. Because they can't handle that. They're not used to that. They were not prepared for that. Telling somebody that has a loved one in prison, that's getting out of prison, that has mental health issues, that these are the things that they're gonna do is not enough. It has to be a more hands-on approach in letting them know how to deal with this. If you got to bring them into the prison so they can see how that person acts in here when they're not on their medicine, then that's what you need to do. Because they had no clue that he could act like that. They love him, but they can't deal with that. They got kids in the house. There's a lot going on. So they got to deal with things that, you know, matter to them as far as their household is concerned. They got to keep their household together. They got to keep their kids safe. They can't have somebody in the house acting like that. So now he goes to stay with friends. People that he has not been around for 30 plus years. That don't really know him anymore. They went to school together. They don't know him. He's 30 years separated from them. But they mess with him. They let him stay. Oh, he clocking out. Here we go again. They tell him he gotta go. Now he's feeling alienated. He wants to go back to the hospital, but he don't really understand what's going on. So he does what he did in the prison when he clocked out, when he clocks out. He cut himself. He cut himself. But like in the prison when he would do that, somebody would find him. Somebody would find him on the cell search. You know how they walk around? They walk around every few minutes to make sure that we're in our cells. If we're in our cells not doing something, we ain't got no business. Nobody else is in the cell with us other than the person that might live in the cell. So on and so forth. They make their rounds. Well, don't nobody make rounds out there. Ain't nobody got time to be watching, you know what I'm saying, somebody in the household like that all day, every day. They were not aware of how they have to deal with somebody that has mental health issues, that don't take their meds. So you know what happened. He cut himself, and he bled, and he bled, and he bled. Now somebody did find him, but when they found him, he barely had a pulse. He barely had a pulse. And they get him to the hospital just in time. Just in time to save his life. Now, the whole time that he was in the hospital, they go to see him. He's apologizing, telling them how sorry he was that he caused this trauma, this pain to them. He was very apologetic because they had him on his meds while he was in the hospital. And he meant that. He meant that. They all mean it. They don't want to hurt anybody. They don't want to hurt anybody, but they don't know how to deal with that. And families don't know how to deal with that. They haven't been trained. They haven't been prepared to handle something like that. You let them out of prison and that's it. No training, no nothing. We got to do something about that. We cannot continue to let people out of prison with mental health issues and not do more for the family members and friends that are going to be dealing with them. We have to explain to them. We have to take them through training. We have to do something so they'll know what they're getting into. And if they can't deal with that, then we need other facilities that people in prison that have mental health issues can go to be safe and be in that regimented environment so they'll continue to take their meds and can contribute to society. It can work. But we got to have the will to do it. All of this back and forth, that ain't helping nobody. It ain't helping nobody. But I just wanted to drop that on you so that you know that family members and friends of somebody that got mental health issues, they want to do the right thing, but they don't know what to do. They don't know how to handle that. And there are no mechanisms in place to force the issue when it needs to be forced. I'm not talking about taking away rights. I'm talking about helping people. I'm talking about helping people. But anyway, I just wanted to drop that one on. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.